6 months ago, we told you about an alliance that's taking shape. CHIMS, China, Iran, Moscow, Saudi Arabia. And over the last 48 hours, we've seen developments which confirm that new equations have been established with long-term strategic consequences. CHIMS, China, Iran, Moscow, Saudi Arabia with the UAE in close strategic formation. The allies also now form a ring around the oil-rich Caspian. Azerbaijan on the western coast of the Caspian could become the next partner, securing Russia's southern frontiers. The beginning may have been on some ambitious planning board for a while, but the world was witness to a dramatic beginning when Beijing early this year brokered Saudi Arabia and Iran's diplomatic relations. American policy, which since the Iran Revolution in 1979 has centered around a confrontation between Saudi Arabia and Iran, was left in scattered pieces, to say the least. Washington could not hide its shock, and since then has been trying to patch together these pieces. Now, you see, Moscow has stepped forward to seal its part of the deal. The Russian President Vladimir Putin, who has preferred to stay in his own country ever since the International Criminal Court, remember, issued orders for his arrest on the charge of kidnapping Ukrainian children to Russia during the war, has stepped out of Russia to visit the UAE and Saudi Arabia. Remember, neither Putin nor Xi came to Delhi for the G20. It was the second time, in fact, that Putin had cancelled a visit to India. Putin has left Russia only twice since the Ukraine war started. And yesterday, he received a royal welcome. The first country on his roster, the UAE, Abu Dhabi, rolled out the carpet for him. And how? Putin was greeted with jets, horses, camels and flags. His plane was flanked by four Sukhoi 35 fighter jets as he arrived there for the COP28 climate talks. His limousine drone through the grounds of the sprawling palace, flanked by camels and horses with soldiers holding the Russian flag. Emirati military jets drew the Russian tricolour in the skies. He received a 21-gun salute. This unusual trip abroad for the Russian president was supposed to be a great show of support between the two countries at a time when the Ukraine war has forced the world to pick sides. The UAE president, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, welcomed his quote-unquote dear friend to Abu Dhabi. The two leaders last met in June at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, where the UAE head of state was the guest of honor. And during their talks, the two leaders discussed a mutually beneficial bilateral future and a strategic partnership. Putin pointed out that relations between Moscow and Abu Dhabi had reached an unprecedentedly high level. He described the UAE, in fact, as Russia's largest trading partner in the Arab world. Putin said that the two countries are actively expanding industrial cooperation while being involved in several major joint oil and gas ventures. The leader of Russia and the UAE, they also talked about the war in Gaza. They talked about the need to work towards permanent peace in the Israel-Palestine conflict. And yes, the other war, of course, the one in Ukraine, also featured in their talks. And after the UAE, Putin went to Saudi Arabia. He met with the Saudi Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman. Discussions in Riyadh also touched on the topic of oil, the war in Ukraine, and the war in Gaza. Putin told the Saudi Crown Prince that he expects to see him in Moscow soon. Quote unquote, nothing can hinder the development of our friendly ties. That's what he told MBS. Remember, they are all part of the oil cartel consisting of 13 of the world's major oil exporting countries known as OPEC+. We can be absolutely certain that President Xi in Beijing, the closest contemporary ally of Putin, was watching this show with a quiet smile of great satisfaction. And since the war in Ukraine started, leading the West to impose harsh economic sanctions on Moscow, the UAE emerged as Russia's key trade partner. And earlier this year, OPEC Plus decided to cut oil output, which had far-reaching consequences, by the way, for US gas prices. And when they met on Thursday, Putin and MBS called on all OPEC Plus members to join an agreement on oil output cuts. In October, Putin was invited by dear friend Xi Jinping for China's third BRI forum. Their ties, you see, are thriving despite Western criticism or the ICC arrest warrant. In fact, China says it has the right to collaborate with whichever country it chooses, and trade between the two countries soared since the war. Nothing can sever this bond, much to the dismay of the US, of course. But this is not the conclusion. Another nation enters the fray, further cementing this alliance while America and its allies watch helplessly. Iran. That's right. Today, the Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi visits Russia, officially invited by Putin. The focal points of discussion during Raisi's single-day visit will include the expansion of economic ties between Iran and Russia. Now, beyond economics, regional concerns such as the Gaza conflict will undoubtedly be high on their agenda. The meeting with the Iranian leader follows a day after Putin's visit to West Asia. Since the invasion of Ukraine, Russia has turned to Iran for weapons, with Iranian drones on top of that shopping list. They have helped turn the tide of the war in Russia's favor. This is addressed by economic partnerships, as both nations confront a cascade of sanctions led by the US and its allies. This year, China made its presence felt in West Asia. Just last week, the UAE and China, in fact, inked a multi-billion-dollar deal. Before that, Beijing hosted foreign ministers from 4 Arab countries to discuss ending the Israel-Hamas war. It all started last year when Xi Jinping visited Riyadh in what was termed as a crucial visit. It was the biggest diplomatic initiative in the Arab world, in fact. It showed Saudi Arabia's intention to expand global alliances beyond a long-standing partnership with the West. It was the coming together of a global economic powerhouse and the Gulf energy giant. It completes this axis of nations, influential not only in their neighborhood but also across the world. CHIMS is an axis that is ready to curb America's sole superpower status and dominance. Equally important, Iran is also at the hub of this geopolitical realignment. It is forging closer ties with Russia and China, hoping to ease its economic woes and build a powerful new axis of power, one that is capable of countering the US-led West. And let's not forget Iran's decision last year to sell armed suicide drones to Moscow to aid its war against Ukraine. All three say they face multiple threats, a sort of military as well as economic strangulation by the US and its friends. For Iran, the picture is clear. It has been at a virtual war with America for half a century after all, and most of the time alone. And today, it is part of a powerful alliance. Its isolation has been broken. We are calling CHIMS an important development in international relations because of its great ability to control the Asian scenario for the foreseeable future. And there's only one loser here, the United States of America. America may remain a superpower, but CHIMS could become a second military and economic strategic power. There is one collateral question. Has China filled the strategic vacuum in the Gulf left by India? We will leave that for you to ponder upon. And one area where China is clearly losing is the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. The only G7 member of China's biggest international project is ditching it. Italy wanted out. It had made that clear months ago. And now it is officially It has officially told China that it is withdrawing. What for? What's the reason behind Italy's Brexit, as we are calling it? Has it finally discovered that BRI is a setup? We have been telling you this seems to be the start of the end of BRI. Back in 2019, in fact, when Italy became a BRI member, then Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte had high hopes. He thought it will boost trade, bring in a lot of money. That did happen, but for China, not Italy. It's China that has raked in most of the profits. Annual Chinese exports to Italy nearly doubled. In 2019, they stood at $34 billion. Today, Chinese exports to Italy are worth $62 billion. But in that same period, Italian exports to China rose modestly from $14 billion to $17.7 billion. Ever since Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni took office, she has been skeptical of the Belt and Road Initiative. On one occasion, in fact, it has been said that Italy's decision to join the BRI was a serious mistake. Meloni says that China has not delivered on its commitments. No economic promises have materialized. So were they simply empty promises is the immediate question. And if yes, then China is facing the consequences now. Italy could have just cancelled its BRI-related projects, but it chose to back out of the initiative wholesale. Italy's full-fledged exit is a humiliation for Xi Jinping. After all, BRI is his dream project, his brainchild, his vision of reviving the old Silk Road, his road to Chinese supremacy. But that road seems to be full of potholes. Italy just dug a big one, but it does not want to sour ties. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has said that Italy can still improve trade and economic ties with China. As reported by Reuters, Italy intends to maintain excellent relations with China. A few months back, the Italian foreign minister had also said something similar. He said that Italy would prioritize a strategic partnership over a single deal. Italy is gifting a Brexit to China on the 10th anniversary of the Belt and Road Initiative. Are sugar-coated words enough to soften the blow? Is there even a point to it? Especially after what Italy's defense minister had said. Back in July, remember, he called the BRI wicked. That's the word he used. He said the decision to join the project was an improvised act that led to a double negative result. Strong words there. Italy's exit is going to bring bad name to the BRI. China is not happy about it, of course. Its foreign ministry has put out a stern warning. Listen in.
China firmly opposes smearing and undermining cooperation in developing the Belt and Road Initiative and opposes confrontation and creating division among the camps.
So you heard that. China opposes confrontation. Why? Has it run out of answers? The BRI is behind on its promises after all, and this has been happening for some time now. Italy decided to take action on it. The Philippines has also, remember, decided to exit. But what about the others? That's the question. What about the poor nations that have fallen prey to China's trap? Some of them stand knee-deep in debt. In others, the projects have failed to yield the expected returns. The unkept promises have only added up. The results are in front of you. Countries now want to opt out. They want nothing to do with the BRI because China is serving its own ends. BRI seems to be China's attempt to redraft the rules of international trade, to skew it in its own favor. Italy believed in China's promise of a symbiosis. Under BRI, China plans to construct, as it calls, the Overland Silk Road Economic Belt and the Maritime Silk Road. Initially, the two were referred to as One Belt, One Road. Now, it's just called Belt and Road Initiative. Xi Jinping insists that the mega project will integrate more countries and regions into economic globalization. In the last 10 years, at least 148 countries have joined the BRI or have at least shown interest in the projects. 44 of them are in sub-Saharan Africa, 35 in Europe and Central Asia, 25 in East Asia and the Pacific, 21 in Latin America and the Caribbean, 18 in West Asia and North Africa, 6 countries in Southeast Asia. China has not even given out a clear definition of a BRI project. Does it encompass everything that China does on foreign soil, including local projects financed by Chinese banks? Does BRI also include projects that have laborers given by Chinese contractors? Well, it's hard to say. China's vagueness, you see, has left enough room for abuse. It has created the perfect breeding ground for scams. And Italy fell for it. But it has woken up. For Italy, dumping BRI is the road to recovery. It's time for the remaining members to act now and to realize that BRI is a road to nowhere. And in tonight's segment of Grvaitas Snapshot, we are discussing none other than Times Person of the Year, a woman who has been given this prestigious title for bringing joy to the world in an otherwise grim time. However, don't be mistaken, bringing joy to the world is no small feat. Perhaps it's her positive karma, or maybe it's because she can effortlessly shake it off. Or could it be her fearless attitude? In one of her iconic songs, she refers to herself as the problem. But for many, it seems, she is the solution. Her music has served as the solace they needed. One thing is for certain, she is no anti-hero. You already know who I'm talking about. Here's a glimpse into the life of the fearless woman of the music industry, Taylor Swift.
If there's one person who has had a massive cultural impact this year, it's singer-songwriter Taylor Swift. Capping off a stellar year that included breaking box office records, provoking an inquiry into Ticketmaster's sale practices, and even causing an earthquake, Taylor Swift has been named Time Magazine's Person of the Year. She emerged on top to claim the prestigious annual title, beating out fellow nominations such as Two World Leaders, a toy turned into a blockbuster movie, a CEO at the helm of the AI revolution, and the King of England. Such is the Taylor Swift effect. She told the magazine that she is the proudest and happiest she has ever felt. For decades, the award goes to an event or person deemed to have had the most influence on global events in 1 year. And the singer checks the box. Her cultural impact is like no other. Already a superstar before 2023, her career reached new heights. Thanks to the Eras tour, the singer performed a career-spanning 45-song set every night. Demand for tickets was so high, it crashed Ticketmaster's website, prompting a hearing into its business practices by the US Senate. When the tour began in the summer, fans who couldn't get tickets gathered in droves, in car parks, and just about anywhere near the arena, just to hear the music. In Seattle, her concerts generated a seismic activity equivalent to a 2.3 magnitude earthquake. But it hasn't been all roses for Miss Swift. Her superstardom comes after a period where she was vilified for her positions on feminism and politics. She spoke out against former US President Donald Trump. She spoke in favor of abortion rights. And when the world entered COVID-19 induced lockdown, she went into a writing spree, producing 2 albums that showcased a more organic, indie folk approach to her music. And the records, well, they confirmed her status as a once-in-a-generation songwriting talent. What's more, last year, she cemented her comeback with her album Midnights, a collection of pop songs based around the thoughts that keep her up at night. Her fans, who call themselves Swifties, went berserk. They hosted listening parties, decoded every song and its meaning, connecting the dots, looking for clues, making theories, and most importantly, sharing how much they relate to the songs. Analysts say that her tour will likely surpass the 1 billion mark next March, when she takes it international. If this projection holds, she will achieve the milestone of the biggest tour in music history. They say that if Taylor Swift were an economy, she'd be bigger than 50 countries. As well as a tour, Swift has also released the biggest selling record of 2023, and it was a re-recording of a decade-old album called 1989. Among her other achievements, the Eras Tour film became the biggest concert movie of all time, taking $249 million at the global box office. She is first living artist to have 5 albums in the US top 10 simultaneously. She has the most #1 albums by a woman in US chart history, and she's the most streamed female artist in the history of Spotify and Apple Music. No doubts then, we are all living in Taylor Swift's era.